Hey everyone, welcome to 30 Days of React.js. I discovered this awesome website and I'm excited to show you how to solve this task. We will use the latest React version, skipping irrelevant chapters, and combining parts for efficiency. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more. Your support means everything for me. Let's get started. We will start from the components chapter, where we need to solve 4 tasks. Let's get started by creating a functional component. It's a simple JavaScript function that returns a React component. We'll begin by adding a title and then we will move on to creating a list of images. I will use the h1 element for the title, since we have already used h1 for the Web for Devs title. Now we need to import our images. We can do this using the import statement, which allows us to include images files. This ensures that our images are bundled with our application and ready for us to use. You can find an example of how to add images here. With the images imported, we can now proceed to display them on our web page. It's worth noting that using the map function would be more efficient way to render a list of components. We will have a map in more detail later in the course. But for now, let's add our images as a list and include some spacing between them. To achieve this, I will create a style CSS file where we can add some CSS styles. Task 1 is now ready. You have learned how to create simple components, import images, and apply styles. Now let's move on the second task and take on a new challenge. Task 2 is all about creating a straightforward form. We'll begin by adding a title and some text to our form. Before we dive into writing the inputs, it's important to understand that we have two options: controlled and uncontrolled components. The difference between them in how we handle input changes and validation. With controlled components, we utilize the onChange function and store the input value in the component state, allowing us to validate it after each change. On the other hand, uncontrolled components offer a simpler approach. We can use refs instead of onChange and skip the validation after each change. In our example, we will keep everything simple and focus on creating the inputs without any complex logic. Since we have 3 similar components, I will create a separate file for the input component and then import it into our main component. The input component will receive props such as type and placeholder to customize its behavior. Because we don't have labels by design, it doesn't mean we should skip it. Let's add labels, and to ensure our inputs are accessible to screen readers, we will add a visual hidden class to a label element with appropriate styles. We use the useID hook to link the label and inputs. First, let's import this hook. UseID is a React hook that generates unique IDs, which can be used for accessible attributes. In our case, we will use it as a ID for the input and the HTML4 for our label. With our input component ready, let's import and use it in our main component. Additionally, we will add a subscribe button. To style our components, let's assign last names to them. The input will have padding and border radius according to the design. Let's copy the color from the task and apply it to our component. As for the subscribe form, we will add padding, border radius and a background color. To create some spacing between the inputs, we will add gap and margin bottom for our subscribe button. Let's also add some styles to our subscribe button. We will copy the background color and add some additional styles. By completing task 2, you have gained knowledge about uncontrolled and controlled components, inspecting colors using DevTools, visually hiding elements while keeping them accessible, using the useID hook, and passing props to the components. Now let's focus on the next task. First, let's create a list with 5 items, just like we have in the design. Each row will be a separate component, which we can create in the same file or as a separate file, depending on the project structure. The row component will receive a background color and a title as a props. And style it accordingly. Now it's time to tackle the generate hexcolor function. We'll start by creating a random color variable, which will generate a random number between 0 and this magic number. Next, let's convert this random color to a string and return it. The final step is to pass the result of this function as a prop to the row component. And just like that, we have completed this task. Great job! Now we know how to create a random color, how to add inline styles in React, and how to add default props value. Our final task will bring together everything we have learned so far. Since we have already covered component creation, style importing, and other essential concepts, I will implement this component accompanied by some delightful music. One exciting detail I would like to share is that we'll be using emojis and special symbols for our check and time icons, adding a touch of creativity to our project. Now let's solve this last task together. Sit back, relax, and let the magic unfold. Please, if you have any questions or comments, leave them under the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Your support means everything.